This is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast with today's guest, profitability consultant Thor Conklin.
Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast on SelenaKnight.com. Stay ahead of the competition by opening your doors to business experts so you can learn, grow, and be inspired. Passionate about bringing business strategies to independent retailers, please welcome your host, Selena Knight.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. This week's episode is not your usual episode. Over this week and next, we are going on an adventure. Not the kind of adventure where you have to dress up in your camo clothing and camp out Bear Grylls style in the woods, but an adventure to break through the current level that your store and possibly even your life is at. Why am I guiding you on this adventure? And that's how I feel. I feel like a travel guide. I'm really excited. Well, I'm guiding you because staying static and hitting that plateau that you just can't seem to conquer, well, that can really screw with your mind. When you've put years and years worth of effort into building your retail business, it can feel like it's just not fair that your business shouldn't continue to keep growing. So over the space of 2 weeks, I'm hosting the Retail Breakthrough Series, a collection of free live chats and podcast episodes, including today's with Thor Conklin, uncovering those key areas that are keeping you stuck, plateaued, and generally in a kind of funk with how your business is progressing. Yesterday, I hosted a very interesting discussion on how to get a cash injection in your store in the next 7 days. In that Facebook Live, I talked about how we believe that not having the money that we need is the number one stated frustration with the retailers that I meet. And from there, we talked about a few examples of retailers who are letting money hold back the growth of their retail businesses. And I even set a challenge. I set a challenge for you to generate $1,000 in the next 7 days to spur you on to get that cash flow boost pronto. If you want to get access to the replay, it will be available for just the next week over at SelenaKnight.com/breakthrough. And I want you to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Accept the challenge. Even better, rope a friend in, rope a retailer in, and see who can generate the most money in the next week. There's nothing like a healthy dose of competition to get those money-making ideas flowing. I do highly recommend that you take the 20 minutes or so out of your day if you seriously want to move your business to the next level and break through those barriers that have been holding you back. So what other juicy goodies will be part of this Retail Breakthrough series? Well, you can see the complete list over on my Facebook page and just search for me. I'm the Selena Knight, but let me also give you a quick rundown so that you don't miss out. I've chosen arguably the 2 most incredibly powerful breakthrough stories that we've ever had on the show. Trust me, you are really going to want to listen to today's episode. If you want insider secrets from someone who has not only successfully founded and sold multi-million-dollar companies, but has personally helped his top 15 clients amass revenues in the billions, and that's billions with a B. In today's episode with Thor Conklin, profitability consultant, we'll delve into how jumping from one sales or marketing strategy to the next is costing you money. We'll talk about the importance of customer experience and how the tenacity and belief in your product and taking specific action allowed founder of Spanx, Sarah Blakely, to end up where she is today. And in amongst all of that feel-good stuff, Thor is also going to share some hard life lessons. How even a successful business can fail when the profit margins are lousy. How a business with a $750,000 profit can end up with only $8,000 in cash. We even talk about when you should give up and walk away on a business, including Thor's personal story of sinking millions and millions of dollars into a business only to have it sink like the Titanic. Before we jump into this episode with Thor, let me quickly finish up with what's happening as part of the Retail Breakthrough series. This Friday the 11th at 10 a.m. Sydney time, and that's Thursday the 10th, 5 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern for all of you in the US, I'm going to be hosting another Facebook Live chat. In this chat, we'll be discussing the number one thing that you're avoiding and how it's costing you up to half of your working week. The fact is, time is our most precious commodity. No matter how much money and influence you have, you can't make more than 24 hours in a day. So utilizing that time that you do have to not only be your most productive, but to also spend that time enjoying the things you love doing outside of work, that is my key to freedom. And freedom is why we get up every day and we be our own boss. Next week on Tuesday the 15th at 10 a.m., that's Monday the 14th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be hosting a live masterclass with a Q&A on the 5 steps to scaling your retail business. We'll dig deep into how to get crystal clear on where your business is at, where you're making money, identifying and plugging money leaks, and implementing next level marketing strategies that will skyrocket your business growth. Now, tickets to this masterclass are free, but I do only have limited spaces. So if you sign up to the Retail Breakthrough series over at selenaknight.com/breakthrough, we will automatically reserve you a spot to that masterclass. So guaranteed that you will be able to get on. And lastly, on Wednesday the 16th, I'm going to be doing one of the hardest things I have ever done. And I am bringing my personal, yes, my own money mindset coach onto the show. I meet with her every single week, and Jen is going to, live on the podcast, dig deep into some really painful parts of my psyche. Because believe it or not, just like you, I hit those plateaus as well. I am so not perfect. I have slumps, I get angry, and I can really get caught up in those negative thoughts when things are all going to shit, let's be honest. But Jen is there to drag me back out and to keep me on the path to success, no matter how fearful I might be. And I believe that it is my job here on this earth to show you how to take the right action in order to have the freedom in life that you want. And the best way to teach is to show you what's working and what's not. So I am laying myself bare in this episode so that I can help you overcome these money mindset barriers. Now, hopefully you're just as excited as this Retail Breakthrough series as I am. And to ensure that you don't miss a thing, because remember, they're only going to be available until the 19th of May, here's what you need to do now. First up, make sure you follow me on Facebook, because that's where I'm going to be hosting these live chats. Just search for The Selena Knight, or if you're in the show notes, just click the link and you can follow me. Number 2 is to grab the number 1 way to add a cash injection to your retail store by the end of the week replay and access the complete Retail Breakthrough series at selenaknight.com/breakthrough. And number 3, I would love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes about how this series helps you break out of the retail rut and supercharge your life and your business. Okay, so let's jump into today's episode with profitability consultant and part of the Retail Breakthrough series, Thor Conklin. Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Let me ask you, what was your first job? Do you think that it had an impact on how you live your life? Well, for today's guest, Thor Conklin, yes, that's his name, his first job as a golf caddy was filled with rejection after rejection. But little did he know that those countless hours of working on the golf course, walking, talking, and asking non-stop questions of the business elite would have a profound influence on his career and lifelong fascination of studying and modeling peak performers. Welcome to the show, Thor.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Okay, the first thing that people say surely is, what a cool name.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you get asked that a lot? Does people say that to you a lot?
I do. Yes, they do.
And what made your parents choose such a strong name like Thor?
They did not actually. I chose it myself.
Ooh.
I was born. Yeah, I was born Randall, Randle. So growing up, most of my life, I was known as Randy. No one calls me Randall. And probably about 18 years ago, it just started to stick, and it really became who I became. And if you ever look, there's a sculptor in Colorado called Bobby Carlisle, and she does a sculpture called The Self-Made Man. And it's a man carving himself out of a block of granite. And he's got a chisel in one hand and a hammer in another. And he's slowly chipping away everything that is not him. And that's who I am. And to me, that likeness is Thor. And it's really become who I am. The man that you hear today is not the same man that was here 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
And no offense to the Randys, but Thor is a way cool name.
Yeah, well, thank you. No one has ever come up to me and said, Randy, I love that name. But every day somebody comes up with Thor. And it was just something that it was a circumstance. It had nothing to do with the character of a comic or anything like that. And it's really become a model. It's my screensaver. A good friend and now mentor of mine said, hell on earth would be to meet the man or woman you could have become. So I wake up every day trying to figure out what does not belong and how I can make this version of me even better.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back to when you were Randy and
yes,
tell us about this golf caddy job. That's a pretty interesting first job. My first job was selling lollies for a charity. Whole different story. But golf caddy's a really cool job.
It really was. It was great money. I want to say this is going back to 1978 or something. In the United States, it was $50 a bag per loop. So if you had two bags, it was $100. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was great money back then. It was cash, and you got a chance to be outside, and I got a chance to ask questions from an amazing, amazing group of people. And it was really like being an entrepreneur because you're sitting there in a caddy yard and you had to hone your skills, and then you had to get a reputation that you knew what you were doing, because it was more than just carrying the bags. It was about reading the putts, clubbing, knowing the terrain, how to hit. There was a lot to it.
But surely when you were in the caddy yard, there's a lot of people there. And I'm just picturing this in my head. There's a whole bunch of young guys. All guys? Were they all guys? We're not being sexist here. Yep. Whole bunch of young guys, probably some pretty beefy ones as well.
Yes.
Randy, the name Randall, doesn't bring to mind a nice, beefy, caddy-like guy.
No, I was a skinny guy. I was a tall, skinny guy. I'm 6'4". I'm not quite sure what, almost, is it 1.9 meters?
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
6'4". Yeah. So I'm pretty tall. I was skinny. And when I first got there, I started at the bottom and I sat there day after day. And towards the end of the afternoon, sometimes we wouldn't get out at all. People wouldn't show up and you go home empty-handed. So it was really a test of learning the trade and putting in your time and being there, sitting on the front row, ready to go.
Okay. So tell me, once you felt like you had a little bit of knowledge behind you, is that how you moved up the caddy list? You started to learn about golf?
Yeah, you started. Yes. I mean, I had the skills, but now I needed the opportunity to display those skills. So even though I had them, I had to get out there. I had to get a reputation with a group of golfers. And as that reputation spread, I then got to the point where one gentleman, every single day when he played, I was the only person that caddied for him for years.
Tell me how you pitched right back at the beginning. How did you pitch that first group of golfers to let you, the skinny, lanky guy who doesn't look like he's up for the job, how did you convince them to take you on board over everybody else?
Yeah, you were the last one sitting there. That's the way it started. You've got to stay in the game. It's just like business. You get in there, and just because you've got a sign out, just because you've got a website, doesn't mean that people are going to come. And you had to sit there, and I had to be there when nobody else was. Everyone else was showing up late. I was the first one there. I was the last one to leave.
Interesting. And once you got in front of them, then you wowed them with your skills and your knowledge.
Exactly. Now, I probably wasn't a great caddy in the beginning, but I learned and I applied myself. Whatever you find yourself doing at that time, become the best. Whether you're a caddy, a janitor, if you're sweeping the halls in a school, Doesn't matter. Become the best.
I like that. I like that. I have a question there. Okay, let's take that subject, because be the best. I have a bit of a saying that I share with my clients, which is done is better than perfect. Because
Yes.
I am an overachiever. I'm not a perfectionist, funnily enough, but I'm the overachiever. So I want my thing to be better than everybody else's. But sometimes that can actually hold you back. Sometimes you just got to get something to market. You've just got to get it out there, get it on the shelf, regardless of whether it's perfect. So how do you take that line of approach? Like, be better than everybody else.
To become the best, you've got to start off being the worst. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And I'll explain that. When I started my podcast, I got all the equipment. I started practicing before I went live. And I still did not have the skills really. If you listen to some of my earlier episodes, it's a very different person that showed up back then that shows up now, because I got better at it as I did it. But I couldn't come out of the box. I couldn't come out of the gate being an expert in it. So I just had to start where I did. And I remember I went and I listened to the first podcast. It took a long time to find it, that EO Fire, John Lee Dumas did. Now, John Lee Dumas he's an amazing podcaster and has an amazing show. I went back and found episode number 1. I listened to it, and he was really, really bad. It was horrible. It was kind of funny. And I said, you know what? That's where he started. That's where we all start. So I just got out there. I did it. And as I kept doing it, I've published my 500th episode 2 weeks ago. I just got better as I went along. And that's the thing. Get it done. Don't make it perfect. It's not going to be your best effort, but it might be your best effort then. Get it out there. Do it.
I like that. And I'm pretty sure I heard John say somewhere along the line that if you go back and listen to your first episode and it doesn't make you cringe, you are doing something wrong.
Yeah, I cringe when I hear mine.
Oh,
and I kept it up there as a reminder. I kept it up there as a reminder that everybody starts the same place. When we start a business, we all start in the same position. Uber started with no rides. Apple started with no customers. It's just where everybody starts. It's with zero.
And when do you think you need to make a decision that it's worth pursuing or not?
Pursuing that business?
Well, pursuing that idea, that concept, that business. So many people put so much money and time and effort into, let's talk about business, into a business. And then there's a point where they really need to make that decision. Now, you've created, bought and sold many multi-million-dollar companies. So you're the man to ask. When do you think people need to make that decision on whether it's worth just cutting your losses and the emotional ties and moving on, or keep on going to make it better?
Yeah, I wish there was a real easy formula here, but I'll give you some techniques that you can use. First and foremost, surround yourself with people that don't have any interest in the venture. People that will tell you the truth. If you've got to hire them, hire them. If you've got to find them, this is not your aunt, uncle, nephew, cousin, mother, father, brother, sister, any of that. These are people that don't care to tell you. They'll tell you the truth, and they don't care if it hurts your feelings. Get those people around you. Give them the financials. Make sure you choose the right people that understand it. And find out. Start talking to your customers. So often I see people go into business with this great idea. It has lousy profit margins. The market doesn't want it. There's no pain in the market. And they just love it because why? It's their baby. Everybody thinks their baby's beautiful. Some babies aren't pretty. You got to find somebody that sits there and says, dude, what are you doing? This is a bad idea. Or you're onto something, but you're missing something. Every business needs certain seats filled. Someone's got to do the production, right? If it's a product or a service, someone has to be out there doing it. Someone needs to have the vision of where we're going with the business, and somebody needs to sell. There's got to be somebody out there that's selling and closing the deals. If you're missing some of those seats and you're trying to do them yourselves, and if you're the artist but you don't know how to sell, you're not being successful. It could be a great business, but you're just not the right sales guy.
That business baby thing, I did a whole episode on that, on why
Yeah.
calling your business your baby is keeping you broke. I am 100% on board with you there. So
Yeah,
tell
because
me,
what happens? Babies you have to take care of them, right? You got to nurture them, you got to feed them, you got to change their diaper. I mean, babies take up a lot of work or a lot of energy, a lot of cost to them. Most people think they're business owners, where the business actually owns them.
so much. I have a bit of a saying: is stop being a shopkeeper and start being a business owner.
Yes, and not everyone can do that. There are some people, people ask me all the time, it's like this entrepreneurial trend I think that we see nowadays is it's like it's the in thing to do and everybody thinks they can do it. It's not for everyone. This is a contact sport.
It's hard
Many
work.
don't. It's hard work. If you don't understand the financials, do not play this game. You will lose the game of business. You've got to know how it works. It's like flying a plane without understanding how to read the instruments. I am not going to get in the pilot seat and start flying a plane because I don't know how to do it. If I did it, we're probably going to crash. But people do it with business all the time, right? And the more money they have, the more ridiculous and the more mistakes that they can make, and it can be a bigger and more dangerous crash.
Oh, I completely hear you. In fact, actually, understanding the numbers is the first module that I always teach when I do a course. Because
Great.
if you don't have them, how do you know how much you need to sell every day? How do you know how much your products need to cost? How do you know how much money you've got to spend on marketing? You just don't.
Yeah. And then some people understand a little bit. I had somebody last night, literally just last night, had about $250,000 net profit for the year. And he had about $8,000 worth of cash left over. So I said, good news and bad news. You made some money and now you got no money to pay for taxes. And he's like, what happened? I'm like, well, let's dig into it. He had no idea. He was all excited. I made a profit. This is great. I'm like, guess what? You made a profit. You don't have the cash to show for it. Where is it?
I see
Big
that
problem.
all the time. I just
Yeah.
got off the phone, literally, like you said, a couple of days ago, from someone who's turning over nearly $1 million and had, I think it was about $250,000 profit and no money in the bank to pay taxes. That's what made me think
Yeah.
of it. The same thing. Biggest complaint was, I've got this huge tax bill and I don't know how to pay it. It's like, well, what
Yeah.
happened to your $250,000 profit?
That's right. Yeah.
Where exactly did that go? Because $250,000 profit should mean $250,000 in the bank.
My business is Profitability Consulting. It really should be cash flow management consulting, but nobody would probably understand that terminology because the profits are important, but what sort of cash are those profits producing? Because you can't put profits in your back pocket. You can't pay your bills with profits. You pay them with cash.
Okay, can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. What would you like to know?
Well, I'm just thinking a lot of people understand the term in retail. They understand the term cash flow, and they're probably thinking, what do you mean? Why could I have profit and not have money?
Great question. And in a retail environment, that's probably the easiest place for this to happen. So if you buy your products, you then deduct your cost of goods sold, you deduct all your expenses. There may be a profit at the end of the month, end of the year, but if you've taken the cash and you reinvested that into assets, your profits or your cash is sitting in assets. You've traded the cash for the asset, and it's still showing up on the balance sheet. And on the P&L as a profit. So very often it's where you have inventory and it's hidden in the inventory.
And then I don't know about in America, but here in Australia, at the end of tax time, you pay tax on that inventory.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We do the same thing. You get hit with the inventory tax.
So you get taxed twice, essentially. You get taxed on the profit that you technically made, and then you also get taxed on the inventory that's sitting there.
Absolutely.
And that's
lose.
That's probably one of the biggest things I see people say is until we have a conversation, they don't understand why people have stock take sales before the end of the financial year. And as soon as you say, well, because you're taxed on everything sitting in the shop, that's here it's classified as income, and they're like, what do you mean? but I haven't sold it yet.
That's right. I don't have the money. It can't be income. And then what tricks people also is that they use financing. If you inject money into the business using financing, your cash flow actually might look good, but the cash flow has two components to it. financing cash flow and operating cash flow. So you want that OCF, that operating cash flow. That is, if there's one thing I could teach business owners from a technical standpoint, understand what operating cash flow is. That's it, OCF. If you walk away and you understand what that is and you run your business looking at OCF, it's a game changer. That, and make sure, I'm a big proponent of, take out what I call is your top, okay? Or for the people from California, their pot. It doesn't matter. Take out your profits, take out your owner compensation, and take out your taxes. Take those three things out, and then what's ever left, that's the expenses or the money that you have left to run the business. But most people run around and they take in the money, right? And then they buy some more inventory. They're paying themselves. They're not actually looking at even the gross margins. And then at the end of the year, they don't have anything. Take your compensation out, take your taxes out, and take out your profits, and then run lean with what's left over. Okay. And you'll always have a profit.
When we're saying the word compensation, we mean your wages, don't we? Your salary.
Yes, that's correct. And I say compensation because depending on where you are in the world, you may want to take some of those that compensation in the form of bonuses or distributions as opposed to wages from a tax standpoint. But yes,
but
at the end of the day,
you're paying yourself.
That's correct. And take it out. It doesn't stay in the business. It goes in your pocket. Remember, business is about creating a profit and cash flow for you and your family, not to keep reinvesting it into that vehicle over and over again.
Would you agree with me here? So we're talking probably the people listening to the podcast are independent retailers, one, maybe 2 or 3 stores. You know, they're not big chains. And I say to those smaller retailers, even if you only pay yourself $100 a week, even if it's only $50 a week, pay yourself that, because within a couple of months, you're going to get really peeved about the fact that you're doing all this work for $50. But if you don't pay yourself, you literally are placing no value on the 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week that you're working. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Remember, this business that you've created and are running is there for your benefit. And what happens so often is I find entrepreneurs have a very big heart, and we tend to take care of those around us, our employees, everybody else, and we kind of put ourselves last. And if you do that year over year over year, you get to the point where you're just burned out. You just don't have anything else to give. The reason we do profitability consulting is that if a business is creating profits, it then has life. Without profits, without cash, the business has no life. It doesn't have a place for employees to go. It doesn't have a place for you to go, because one day it's not going to be in business.
We sort of didn't get to the point of how you ended up here talking about money, cash flow, profitability, and I did hint at the fact that you've created and bought and sold several multi-million dollar companies. So can you just give us a quick rundown on how you know this stuff? How have you come to be able to speak so passionately about helping business owners make more money?
Well, this is the painful part. Thank you for bringing this up. But here's the truth. I had a business that I purchased that I got into in 2008, right before the recession. The owner had fabricated the financials. They were completely fictitious. I found myself in a multi-million-dollar business that did not have the profitability that I thought was there. I had to inject tons of money into it, and I lost my shirt. And it was the first time where I couldn't make something work. And through that pain, I discovered that there were a lot of other business owners just like me that had multi-million-dollar businesses. And for whatever reason, they couldn't figure out how to turn a profit. And I went on a journey to figure out why that was. What were we missing, including for myself, because I never wanted to suffer through that again. And it was my 5th venture. All the other ones were very successful, profitable exits. And then this happened. I was like, that's not supposed to happen that way, right? The mistakes are supposed to be in the beginning, not towards the end. And I just went on, I became obsessed. I wanted to understand what was missing. Why was I not the only one in this scenario? And what could I do to help other entrepreneurs so they never have to go through this ever?
So what was missing? What was the thing? Everybody's thinking, you put us on the hook now. What was missing in that business that made it not be successful, even after it wasn't profitable when you bought it, but you did sink a lot of cash into it. So what was the missing link?
First of all, some businesses are not good businesses to be in, period. Times change, environments change, customer buying habits change. I mean, right now, would you like to own a Blockbusters?
I was just thinking, you right now do not want to be owning a video store.
Right. But at one point, right, I mean, they were just generating cash, hand over fist. What a great concept. I've got a movie, I rent it out, people then pay late fees, they bring it back and I rent it again. I mean, beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. The times have changed. So one, make sure that you're in a business that has a runway that is a profitable runway into the future. 5-10 years into the future, this is going to be something that's going to continue to generate good profits. That was number one. Number two is it really came down to the belief systems for most of the businesses that I find that are not doing well. It's not the plan. They're committed. They're working their what's off. They've got something in conflict with each other. Either they're running around, they're extremely busy, but they're not focused. They're working on 5 things instead of 1 thing. They're failing to find out what the market wants, and they're continuing to do business the way they've always done it. They're not innovating. Customer service models, I think, are absolutely horrendous. People are trying to automate everything where the customer's saying, I don't want to talk to a computer. I want a person. And people are going the opposite way. Tracking, measuring, and adjusting. Track the small stuff. Business is about taking little teeny things and doing them consistently to create extraordinary results. Time. Sometimes you think it's not working, but it actually is working. But unless you're tracking and measuring and seeing what's working and what's not, you're jumping all over the place. I see a lot of, let me try this for a week. Oh, that's not working. Well, it actually takes 3 or 4 weeks for that to work, and you just keep jumping from one thing to the other. Everyone's looking for, okay, what's the new, sales funnel that is going to fix all my problems? Doesn't work that way. Culture, people. The tendency to hold on to people that just aren't right for the organization, we see it everywhere. If the people are not the right people, I don't care how hard you're working, you're just going to be pushing a boulder up a hill.
Definitely. The time, the leaving things to see if they work, that for me is such an important part of business that people just overlook. And when you were talking about that example, my first thing was marketing. Oh my goodness, if I have to hear another retailer say, I put a Facebook ad up for 2 days and I didn't sell anything, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
You have to give it time.
Right. And with retail establishments, your biggest asset is everyone that's ever come through the door and has purchased from you before. You need to understand and have information on everyone that walks through your door. Stop trying to find the new customer and start taking care of your existing customers. Treat them like gold. They will spend...
I was going to say, it's a lot easier to get money out of the people who've already bought from you, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you have to have your customer service model together. Look, why do people go into a retail store versus buying something online? It's the experience. It's the customer service. It's you behind the counter. It's you greeting them at the door. But it's about the experience.
But do you believe that you can create that same experience online?
Absolutely. And that's why the retail companies are having a difficult time. Is because, one, you can create some of that online. When I'm talking with prospects, I'm generally not talking on the phone. I always set up a Zoom or a Skype call with video. Why? I want to look at them. I want to have a connection. I don't want to just be a voice. I want to be a face. I want to look at them. I want them to walk away with a feeling that we had a moment together.
I did a podcast just recently about conversation starters when you don't know anybody in the room, and I said in that little, it was just a little sort of 5-minute clip that I did in the lounge waiting to get on the plane, and I said in that little clip, the after parties are where all the networking is done, because you can let your hair down, you can just have a conversation with someone. You're not focused on what the speaker is saying or what you're supposed to be learning. And like you were saying, those connections, those real life connections, if you have the ability to make those offline, you can completely change your business, because people don't like to say no to somebody that they've met in real life.
Right. Exactly. And go into those relationships, or the start of those relationships, figuring out what you can give to the relationship. I see so often when people are doing networking, it's like, okay, they want to get. Want your card, want to get your number, want to set up a coffee date, want to do this, want to start giving. Go in there and figure out what you can give. It's a cornerstone of everything that we do in our organization. And what ends up happening is our referral system works something like this. I'll get a phone call out of the blue, and it's like, Bob said I need to hire you. I don't know what you do. Bob really loves you guys. How much does it cost?
I
was like, come on. Right. It's like, can I please just go through my deck and have a little bit of fun? I'm getting rusty at actually trying to, bring on new clients, because I'm always going in trying to figure out. I'm not sitting there saying, you got any referrals? Got any referrals? I'm trying to figure out what I can give. I'm constantly figuring out, okay, my customers are in this space. What do I need to do? Just last week, I have a company that is an investment company, and somebody needed something that they had. And I said, come on in, I'll introduce you. So I introduced him. I didn't sit there. I didn't say, okay, now I'm going to introduce you to this guy. So now I want, 15% of whatever's done. No. 3 years ago, I did something similar. And this particular client of mine gave me a 6-figure check out of the blue. Just wrote me a 6-figure check. He said, thank you very much for that introduction. It was so important. And the person I introduced them to said the same thing. I'm like, well, they actually wrote me a check. You want to write me one too? I didn't do that. But, it's that. Figure out how to provide value. And same thing with your customers. As a retailer, you've got the opportunity to make a real impact on your customers. Make it. I was at a restaurant the other day, and I was sitting there, and the owner came around. Italian restaurant. The owner comes around. What can I do for you? Welcome. First time here? Yes. First time. He goes, anything you want, just let me know. I'll take care of it. And I said, I took my fingers and I made about 2 inches between my thumb and my forefinger, and I said, do you have a stack of hundreds? And I'll always joke around with people like that. You got a stack of hundreds? I could use a stack. So he reaches into his pocket, and he had just gone to the bank for the night, and he had a stack of like 1s and 5s and 10s and everything in there. It was about 3 inches thick. He goes, I don't have hundreds, but I got this. You can have it. And I said, out of all the times I've ever done that, you're the first person who reached into his pocket and pulled something out. I said, I like you, and I'm going to be back. I'll be back. Yeah. And I have. I love the place. It's like family. I walk in. Thor, how you doing?
We have to change your name to Joey.
Right, right. It's just, I can't get that experience everywhere. I certainly don't get that experience online.
No, you don't get that when you get your pizza from Domino's.
No. I had an Uber driver. An Uber driver picked me up. He had a sign like a chauffeur, an Uber X guy. Gets out of his. I don't know if that equates in Australia, but that's it's the cheapest one. He gets out like a limo driver with a sign with my name on it. I get in the car. In the back seat, he's got soda, he's got water, he's got candy. And then he's got a disco ball on the roof, and he's got karaoke. So on your way home, you sing karaoke, video karaoke. Think he got a big tip?
I was going to say, can we just say right there that I love Uber.
I do too.
Here in Australia, the taxi system is so antiquated. So that concept where the person who picks you up actually wants you to be there is in itself so nice, because taxi drivers in Australia, it's a protected industry. So they get paid. Yeah, I appreciate that, this is very generic, and I understand that there's issues that go on and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they've owned this market for so long that the government is now taxing Uber to pay for the taxi drivers.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
but how
And
nice
if you own a taxi cab company, right? Put a disco ball in your taxis. Make it fun. This guy was making more in tips. Lord no, it was he's done 8,000 rides on Uber. The guy was having a blast. I laughed the whole way home. A matter of fact, it was a half mile Uber ride. It was cold. Don't hate on me. It was cold. So I jumped in the Uber. It was like $6. I left him a $5 tip for half mile. Best time.
Yeah. And all because he made the experience great.
Exactly. It's about the experience and the customer service. And people have lost sight of that. And I love it because I crush them at it.
I have to ask you, because you're a profitability consultant, what you gave us a whole bunch of tips, and I want to try and write those down in the show notes. But what is the first thing you do when you meet with a client? Like, what is the first? Is it you go into the numbers? Is that what you do, or
No,
what do you do? Tell us.
The numbers are at the end. The numbers are a result of what the behaviors have been, plain and simple. We start off with, what is your vision for your life? I want to know where you want to go, because so many entrepreneurs spend their entire lives chasing their business, and everything else in their lives suffer. If you end up at the end of your life and you've made a bunch of money and you've destroyed your relationships, destroyed your health, and you've got nothing else to show for it, I promise you it will be a loss. It doesn't matter. You've got to have the whole deal. So it starts off with, where do you want to go in your life? What do you want? Then let's figure out how we can design your business to support your life, not you support your business. I want to know, once that's determined, what is your vision? Then when we come down and we set one of the pillars as your business, you're going to have your health and fitness. You're going to have your relationships. You're going to have spirituality in there if that's important to you. So we have this foundation along with your business that supports your vision. And then from that point, we then dive into the business. And what I want to know is, what do you want to create? What is it? Okay, now that we know the end game, let's figure out a plan to get to the end game. And then we break that down until we back it all the way down to what we need to do this week in order to get to that objective. So we're deconstructing it. But as we're going through that process, we're making sure that the plan is efficient and it's effective. We want to make sure that you're committed to it, because most people decide that they're going to do something, but they never really commit to it. And the difference between decisions and commitments, a decision is an internal response to something. You decide internally and say, I'm going to do this. Commitment is an external action. That's when you take action and you tell the world, this is what I'm going to do. This is when you either quit your job, open the doors of the new business. I'm always talking about the importance of social media. If this is what we're going to do, let's go tell everyone on Facebook what you're going to do. Ooh, well, if I do that, I'll actually have to do it. Yeah, now you see how this game works. I mean, you could do it or I could do it for you. Doesn't matter. So once I get their commitment, I get some leverage on them, and then we start going into what their belief systems are. And often we see that people aren't getting the results that they want because they've got too much going on, or they have conflicting belief systems. I want the absolute best relationship possible. I want to be at my son's soccer game every Tuesday at 2:00. And I want to make $10 million in my business this year. Oh, and then I also want to climb Mount Everest as well. They've got conflicting and competing goals that are all great. I mean, they're wonderful, but we all get 24 hours. And we've got to make some decisions on which ones we're going to pursue, because we can't have everything. We can have anything, but we can't have everything. And there's this belief going around the internet nowadays that you can have everything. That's the biggest BS story out there. You can have anything, but you've got to choose.
And you can't have everything now.
Yeah, right. And you got to pay your dues. I've got some good friends of mine that are uber successful, and people are always like, oh yeah, it's easy for them. Their backstory, they were standing in, well, I'll tell you who it is. It's Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. Yeah, founder of Spanx. She stood stood every day for 2.5 years, Monday through Sunday, every day for 2.5 years. I don't know if it was a Saks or a Neiman's. I forget which store it was. And she sold her fitwear as if she was an employee of Neiman Marcus or Saks for 2.5 years. Traveled around the country, stood in the store to sell her stuff. That wasn't her job. She was the CEO of Spanx. But nobody else at that point in the beginning that was going to do that. People didn't understand our product. So she sat there and she talked to moms that came into the store and explained what her product did.
She basically started an industry.
She started an industry with $5,000 and never spent any advertising until last year. Not one nickel on advertising. No Facebook ads. No, there wasn't Facebook back then, but nothing.
I remember her so well. I don't know, must have been more than 10 years ago when she was on Richard Branson's, he did other mentor type show. And she
with
was
the balloon?
And she came second. And I was so devastated for her because she was so resourceful.
She's scared to death of heights. Scared to death of heights.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. But she was willing to do that, climb all the way on top of that balloon. Remember, the reason she had to climb on top of the balloon is she wouldn't go between the two balloons on the gangplank.
I remember the one where that she had to they had to get from one island to the other. And she was smart enough to get somebody to windsurf across for her, and she piggybacked on him. and all the others were trying to learn how to windsurf. That's what I remember. But because she had a vision, right? She knew what she wanted. So let me ask you, the vision question is probably one of the hardest that people can't answer. It's one of the questions when I ask every potential client, what do you want out of your life? What do you want from the business? If 2 years from now your life was perfect, what would it look like? And most of them don't know. They just have no idea. So why do you think it is so hard for people to know what's going to make them happy?
To know what's going to make them happy? I don't think they do know what's going to make them happy. And I certainly don't know what's going to make them happy. But we'll start going through some things that won't make them happy. So we kind of go through an elimination. They go, okay, I have no idea what I want my life to look like. Okay, great. Do you want to be homeless? No. Okay, good. So you want to have a home? Yes. Okay, good. You want a home. Do you want to be healthy or sick? I want to be healthy. Okay, great. So we want a home and we want a health. I'll make it real simple. This is not about making it perfect. This is not about saying, I've got one chance to design my perfect life, and if I screw it up, this is not going to be good. No, it's just let's get some. This is a guiding point. This is a North Star. This is a aiming point. This is not something that is written into stone. And I do it in a way that is very big picture. Mine is I want to wake up every day with a sense of joy and love in my life. That doesn't say where I live. That doesn't say how much money I'm making. It's a feeling. And what do I want my life to look like? Who do I want to be surrounded by? How do I want to spend my days? Do I want to spend my days 14 hours in the boardroom? No, that didn't end up in my ultimate vision. But for someone, it might. Everyone, if you can figure out what they don't want, it helps them get a little closer to what they do want. And look, everyone needs to be detaching every year, spending 3 or 4 days and working on their plan for their life and the following year. Every November, every early December, I pull away, I go to the beach, I go to the mountains, and I look and I review last year, and I look what I want to create next year. And then I put together a plan, and it gets modified. Now, it's gotten pretty good after 15 years, but there's always adjustments that I'm making to it. And some of the things that I thought were really important 15 years ago, you know what? Just aren't important anymore.
Not so much, yep.
Right.
Do you think that a business can reach fantastic profitability if they don't have the vision?
No. Because here's why. One of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is they say yes too often. If you don't have a vision, you don't know what to say no to. And if you can't say no, you're doomed. Period. Most successful clients and the most successful people that I know in business and in life are the people that have such a narrow focus on what they want, and anything that comes in there that is not in alignment with that, they immediately say no. And they say no to a lot of great things, but they know where they're going.
I have a good question for people with that. I say, if you're saying yes to this, if you're saying yes to this vision, what do you have to say no to?
Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing that's, they say success leaves clues. If you study the most successful people in every area, I don't care if it's finance, I don't care if it's business, fitness, relationships, whatever it is, they know how to say no. If it's not in alignment, I have on my desk an old mariner's compass, and it's there to remind me that there's a North Star, there's a vision, there's a destination that I'm going towards, and I've got to remind myself because I get great opportunities all the time that come across my desk, and it's easy if you don't have a vision, you don't know where you're going. It's easy to say, "Oh, I like that." The shiny penny syndrome. Mm-hmm. We're all subject to that.
Okay. I have to ask you now, what is your most favorite store? What is the place that you love to go to?
My favorite store is High Country Outfitters. You walk into this store, and it's, from a pricing standpoint, it is more expensive than most. It is not cheap. You do not get a deal when you go there.
You can afford that with your six-figure check that you got from the client.
Yes. What was funny about that story is I wrote down on my vision board that I was going to start a new business that particular year, and the amount of money that I was going to take out of that business for myself that year was the exact same number to the penny. And the person that wrote that check had no idea that I had that vision board.
Okay, Back to your store. What do you love about it?
High Country Outfitters. Everyone in there is an expert in their particular area. They're hikers, they're campers, they're outdoor people, they're kayakers. You walk in there and you ask a question. I'm always the dumbest one in the entire store. It's like anything I want to know. It's like, okay, I'm going camping and I need what? And like, you need this, this, and that. Why do I need that? This is why you need this. Oh, and do you have one of these? No, I have no idea what that is. They know exactly what I need. They're experts, and they've got a cool golden retriever that's part of the team. So I'm a dog guy. So I go in there. I got my golden retriever. They got couches. It's like walking into kind of a big log cabin living room thing that has a whole bunch of stuff for sale and people that know what you need.
They want to help you succeed in the thing that you're going to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's hiking or fishing or kayaking.
Yep. And it was interesting because I went in just recently. I rented a kayak. I was training for a race, the 120-mile kayak race, and I needed a kayak to train on. So I go in there, and I needed it for like 2 days from then, but that was the only day I could get in there. So I was going to actually have it for 3 days, not 2 days. And they said, "What are you going to use it?" I said, "I'm not going to use it until like 2 days from now." They're like, "Well, why are you picking it up today?" I said, "I just don't have any time to pick up the next day." They go, "You know what? We understand. We're not going to charge you for the 2 extra days." Like, that's cool. I'll be back. Cool. Right.
Okay, I have one last question.
Okay.
We didn't talk about it, but at one point you were an insurance salesman selling door to door. So taking into account this, beginning your job career as a caddy, where you were rejected over and over again, through to the insurance salesman, rejected over and over again, seeing a bit of a pattern here. How does it feel now to be in that situation where you don't even have to go looking for clients? People are just coming to you saying, "Apparently I need you. How much is it going to cost?" What does that feel like compared to those years upon years of rejection after rejection?
I learned to take that rejection and use it for me. That was not it was difficult while I was going through it. It was frustrating while I was going through it. But the muscle that I developed, the lessons that I learned, and the resilience, I am so tenacious. And I never would have been tenacious had I not gone through that scenario. If things were easy in the beginning, I never would have the fortitude to continue on. It's when people I was 18 years old and selling life insurance. Do the math.
What do you know about life at 18?
Right, exactly. It was not a good career choice at the time, but it was a phenomenal one long term because I just continued to go and go and go and just keep going. It didn't matter. The no just brought me closer to the yes. I had a manufacturing company and a customer that I worked with for 6 years. I knew I was going to close the deal. They wanted to work with me. It just wasn't the right time. Every 3 months, I'd follow up. I'd go out and I'd see them. But I kept checking in. Took 6 years. It was a $30,000, $40,000 sale. But I wasn't going to give up just because they said no. They said, well, I want to do business with you. Great. Is now the right time? No. Okay. When might be the right time? Maybe in 3 months, maybe in 6 months. I'll come back and I'll see you.
I love that. It's only no right now.
Yes. I mean, how many times have you seen something and you're like, no, I don't need that right now? And then it's like, well, you know what? Now I need it.
Yes, so many times. And that tenacity is, I think, one of the things that especially product creators, especially manufacturers and people who are trying to get other brands to take their product on, they need that, because I always say it's only no for right now. It's not no forever.
Yeah. And if you're a retail establishment and you don't know how to get in touch with every single person that's ever walked through your door, stop what you're doing and set up a system where you can contact them and tell them what's going on and what you have for them, and treat them like gold. You know, one of the biggest issues I have is with gyms. You know, I've been a member at the gym and I'm paying full price, and then the new guy, he gets the deal. It's kind of like the cell phone companies, right?
Yep.
Oh, we got a great deal for you. If you're a new customer, if you're an existing customer, well, we have our most expensive deal for you. Why would you treat the people that are loyal to you? In my business, when you become a client, the rate never goes up. Our rates have doubled in the last 18 months. For the people that are still with us from 18 months ago, they'll never go up. I make that promise to them.
Yeah,
I make that promise to them. Yeah.
I have people paying ridiculously low amounts of money because they were there when I started out.
Right. And I'm fine with that. You made a commitment to me. I'm going to make a commitment to you, and I'm going to treat you like gold.
Yes. All right. I think we're going to stop there because I think you and I could talk for a very, very long time.
We could.
If people are thinking that they might like to know more about this whole profitability thing, where can they find you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just reach out to me by email, thor@thorconklin.com. And what I'd like to do also for your audience, if anyone is suffering with something in their business and it's just a problem that doesn't seem to go away and it just kind of continues to be there and they've tried everything, if they send me a 50-word or less email, I will send them back a 4-step process to absolutely eliminate that problem, or at the very least, greatly reduce it so it is no longer that issue that keeps you stuck.
Wow, that's an extremely generous offer. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it does take me a little while to get back because you're not going to end up in some sort of funnel with a auto-generated response. I respond back to these emails personally. That's correct.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. This is wonderful. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.